The silver ships appeared without warning on a Tuesday morning, hanging in space like deadly jewels against the black void. They were beautiful in a cold, perfect way that made your skin crawl. Not a single scratch or dent marked their surfaces. No battle scars, no history of struggle. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Thys watched Earth spin slowly on her viewing screen. Her crystalline body pulsed with soft blue light as she studied the third planet from this unremarkable yellow star. Everything about it screamed chaos to her ordered mind. "Look at those storm systems," she said to her aide, pointing at the swirling hurricanes dancing across Earth's surface. "Completely unpredictable weather patterns. How does anything survive down there?" The aide's form flickered in agreement. The atmospheric readings show extreme temperature variations. Ice caps at the poles, burning deserts at the equator. This world is trying to kill its own inhabitants. Thys had seen thousands of worlds in her 3 centuries of service to the Felthari Collective. This one was different, not because it was unique, but because it was so obviously broken. Yet somehow, impossibly, it had produced intelligent life. Down on Earth's surface, Lieutenant Jimin Park sat in a cramped monitoring station buried 3 levels beneath Seoul. Banks of computers hummed around him, their screens filled with tracking, data that made his stomach tight with worry. The alien ships had been sitting there for 6 hours now, not moving, not responding to any communication attempts. "Still nothing?" asked Captain Hana Kim as she slipped into the chair beside him. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept since the ships appeared. "Dead silence," Jimin replied, highlighting the formation pattern on his main screen. "But look at their positioning. They're not random. It's like they're surrounding us." Hana studied the display. The alien vessels formed a perfect sphere around Earth, each one exactly the same distance from the planet's surface. Too precise to be accidental, too coordinated to be peaceful. "Have you ever seen anything like this before?" she asked. Jimin shook his head. "In all my years monitoring space traffic, I've never seen ships maintain formation like that. It's like they're not just watching us, they're containing us." 3 floors above them, General Minho Lee paced behind his desk while Dr. So-Young Choi explained her analysis. The xenobiologist looked tired but excited, the way scientists always did when faced with something completely new. "Their technology is incredible," she said, gesturing at the data streaming across her tablet. "Those ships are generating energy, fields we can barely detect, let alone understand. But here's what puzzles me, they're positioned like guards." "Guards protecting what?" Minho asked. "That's just it. From their perspective, maybe they're protecting us, or maybe they're protecting everyone else from us." Back in space, Thais continued her assessment. The planet below was a disaster waiting to happen. Massive tectonic plates grinding against each other, creating earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, oceans that could generate storms powerful enough to level entire continents. An atmosphere so thin that a small shift in solar radiation could freeze or fry everything alive. And yet, the dominant species had not only survived but thrived. "Show me the population centers," she commanded. The display shifted to show Earth's major cities. Thys studied them with growing amazement. These humans had built massive structures in the most dangerous places imaginable. Cities on fault lines that regularly shook themselves apart. Settlements in areas that flooded every few years. Metropolises in regions where the air itself became toxic during certain seasons. "They're either incredibly stupid or incredibly stubborn," her aide observed. "Look closer," Thys said, zooming in on Tokyo. "See how they build? Those structures are designed to flex and bend. They're not fighting their environment, they're adapting to it." She pulled up more data. Historical records showed this species had survived ice ages that should have wiped them out completely. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years. Asteroid impacts that would have ended most civilizations. Each time they had not just survived, they had come back stronger. "Commander," her aide said quietly, "I'm reading something disturbing in their cultural data." "What kind of disturbing?" "They fight each other constantly. Wars, conflicts, territorial disputes. But the pattern is strange. Every few decades, when they face an external threat, they stop fighting each other and unite against the common enemy. Thais felt a chill run through her crystalline form. In her centuries of dealing with primitive species, she had never encountered one that became more dangerous when threatened, not less. On Earth, Jimin noticed something that made his blood run cold. "Captain Kim, you need to see this." Hana hurried over to his station. "What is it?" "I've been analyzing their energy signatures. These ships, they're not military vessels." "What do you mean?" "I mean they're not designed for combat. Look at the power distribution patterns. Everything is focused on defensive systems and containment fields. These aren't warships, Captain. They're transport vessels. The implications hit them both at the same time. Transport vessels meant the aliens weren't here to destroy Earth. They were here to take something away from it. Or someone." High above in her perfect ship, Commander Thys made her decision. These humans were clearly suffering on their broken world. The merciful thing would be to relocate them somewhere safer, where they could develop properly without the constant threat of natural disasters. She had done this hundreds of times before. It always worked the same way. This time would be different. The meeting room aboard Space Station Unity had never felt smaller. Ambassador Do-hyun Park adjusted his tie for the third time, trying to calm nerves that had been rattled since the alien ships appeared a week ago. Around the circular table sat Earth's finest minds and military leaders, all waiting for humanity's first real conversation with another intelligent species. Captain Hana Kim checked her recording equipment one final time. Every word of this encounter would be analyzed by experts for decades to come. Beside her, Colonel Sunwoo Kang kept his hands folded, but his eyes never stopped moving, cataloging every detail of the sterile meeting chamber. "Are we ready?" Do-hyun asked. Admiral Yuna Shin nodded from her position near the communications array. "All channels are open. The world is watching." The air in the center of the room began to shimmer like heat waves rising from summer pavement. Slowly, a figure materialized, tall, elegant, made of what looked like living crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. When she spoke, her voice carried the sound of wind chimes mixed with authority. "Greetings, children of Earth. I am Commander Thys of the Veltari Collective." The word children hit the human delegation like a slap. Do-hyun kept his diplomatic smile in place, but something cold settled in his stomach. Nobody called grown adults children, unless they thought of them as less than equal. "Welcome to our solar system, Commander Thys. I'm Ambassador Park, representing the United Nations of Earth. We're honored by your visit." Thys's form flickered in what might have been amusement. "Your politeness is charming, but unnecessary. We are not visitors here on some social call. We have come to help you." Dr. So-young Choi leaned forward. "Help us with what, exactly?" "With everything." Thys gestured, and holographic images filled the air around them. Beautiful worlds with perfect blue skies, peaceful cities where graceful beings moved in harmony, technology that seemed to grow from the ground like plants. These are worlds we have guided, species we have saved from their own primitive natures. Colonel Sunwoo studied the images with a soldier's eye. Everything looked too clean, too orderly, like museums where people weren't allowed to touch anything. What happened to their original worlds? Most were abandoned. Why cling to harsh, dangerous places when paradise awaits? Thys's light pulsed brighter. Your Earth is what we call a trauma world. Look at the evidence: constant natural disasters, extreme weather, unstable geology. Your species shows all the classic signs of trauma-based evolution. Admiral Yuna raised an eyebrow. Trauma-based evolution? You develop through suffering instead of cooperation. Your bodies are weak and fragile, yet you survive through violence and aggression. You fight endless wars with each other because conflict is all. It's tragic, really. The room fell silent. Do-hyun could feel the temperature dropping as his colleagues absorbed what they'd just heard. These aliens weren't here to trade knowledge or establish peaceful relations. They were here to rescue humanity from itself. "We appreciate your concern," Do-hyun said carefully. "But I think you may be misunderstanding us. Yes, Earth can be challenging, but it's our home. We've adapted to it quite well." Theis's crystalline form dimmed slightly. Adapted. You call constant warfare adaptation? Your species cannot go more than a few years without killing each other en masse. Your cities are built in the most dangerous locations possible. You poison your own air and water. This is not adaptation, this is slow suicide. Captain Hana felt her jaw clench. Maybe we see challenges differently than you do, because you have never known anything else, but we can show you better ways. Peaceful ways. We have relocated over 300 species to safer worlds where they could develop their true potential. The word relocated echoed in the chamber like a gunshot. Colonel Sunwoo's hands were no longer folded. And if a species prefers to stay on their original world, they always resist at first. It's natural. But once they experience true peace, they understand we were right to intervene. Theis's tone became almost motherly, which somehow made it worse. You cannot see beyond your trauma because you are still trapped within it. Dr. Soyoung cleared her throat. Commander, what exactly are you proposing? Relocation to suitable worlds within our protective sphere. We will guide your development, help you overcome your violent tendencies, and teach you to live in harmony. Within a few generations, your children will thank us for saving them from this harsh existence. Do-hyun exchanged glances with Admiral Yuna. Both had spent enough time in negotiations to recognize an ultimatum disguised as an offer. And if we decline? Thais paused, her light flickering in what might have been surprise. Decline? No species has ever declined our assistance. Well, we're declining it now, Colonel Sunwoo said flatly. The alien commander's form brightened, then dimmed, as if she was processing something completely outside her experience. I think there may be a communication error. You cannot seriously prefer to remain on this dangerous world when we offer you paradise. Paradise for who? Admiral Yuna asked. Those beings in your images. Do they still create art? Do they still explore? Do they still dream of impossible things? They live in peace and harmony. They have no need for such chaotic pursuits. Then, they're not living, they're just existing. Theis's form began to pulse more rapidly. You are proving my point about trauma-based thinking. You associate struggle with meaning, because you have never known anything else. Do-hyun stood up slowly. Commander Theis, we thank you for your offer, but Earth's answer is no. We prefer to remain on our world and determine our own destiny. The silence stretched for nearly a minute. When Theis finally spoke, her voice carried a new edge. This response is unprecedented. I will need to consult with my superiors. Her hologram flickered and began to fade. I will return in one rotation of your planet with our final decision. I advise you to use this time to reconsider. After she vanished, the human delegation sat in stunned silence. Finally, Admiral Yuna spoke what they were all thinking. That wasn't a request. That was a threat. Do-hyun nodded grimly. Get me a direct line to every world leader. We have 24 hours to prepare for whatever they're planning. As the humans filed out of the meeting room, none of them noticed. The small crystalline device left behind in the corner. It pulsed once, recording everything it had witnessed, then went dark. The Veltari had never encountered a species that said no. They had no idea what to do with one that meant it. The invasion began at sunrise on a Wednesday, silent and surgical. No explosions, no destruction, just a soft humming sound that filled the air as translucent energy domes descended over every major city on Earth. From space, the planet looked like it had been covered in soap bubbles. Major Jae-hyun-oh was drinking his morning coffee when every screen in Seoul's command center went black at once. The satellite feeds, radar systems, communication arrays, everything that connected them to the outside world simply died. What the hell just happened? He shouted, setting down his mug so hard it cracked. Sergeant Minju Seo was already at her workstation, fingers flying over manual controls. Sir, we've lost all electronic communications. Satellites, radio, internet, it's all down. But the weird thing is, nothing's actually broken. The equipment is fine. It's like something is just blocking everything. Through the reinforced windows, Seoul looked normal except for the faint shimmer in the air high above, like looking up through water. People on the streets had stopped walking and were pointing at the sky, their phones held up uselessly as they tried to make calls that wouldn't connect. 3 floors below, Captain Hana Kim was discovering that hardwired systems still worked. Emergency landlines that ran through underground cables remained active, connecting military bunkers across the city. Her voice crackled through the speakers of a dozen hidden command posts. "This is Captain Kim to all units. Report status immediately, the Dao." Responses came in one by one. Every base was cut off from satellite communication, but their local systems functioned perfectly. It was like someone had thrown a blanket over the entire planet, blocking signals from getting in or out, but leaving everything underneath untouched. "It's not an attack," Hana realized, speaking into her headset. "It's containment. They're not trying to hurt us, they're trying to isolate us." Meanwhile, in a basement laboratory beneath the city, Dr. Taeyang Moon was having the most productive morning of his career. When the power grid fluctuated during the alien intervention, his experimental equipment had recorded some very interesting data. "The energy field they're using operates on a specific frequency," he muttered to himself, adjusting his makeshift scanner, "and if it operates on a frequency, it can be disrupted." Across the globe, similar scenes played out. The Velthari had expected their peaceful intervention to proceed smoothly. Disable communications, establish protective barriers, wait for the humans to realize resistance was futile. It was a process they had perfected over centuries. What they hadn't expected was how quickly humans adapted. In London, Sergeant Young-Soo Lim was discovering that the aliens' energy field didn't block physical cables. While satellite communications were down, the old fiber optic networks that ran beneath the city still worked perfectly. Within hours, a web of underground communication was spreading across the globe. "Message from Tokyo," his radio operator announced. "They've figured out how to overload the containment field using their subway's electrical system." "From New York?" another voice chimed in. "They're reporting success with something called an electromagnetic pulse. 3 alien patrol craft went down." Young-Soo grinned. "Pass it along to everyone. If it worked once, it'll work again." The first real counterattack came from Buenos Aires, where a team of electrical engineers had turned the city's power grid into a massive weapon. They synchronized every generator, transformer, and power plant to discharge simultaneously, creating an electromagnetic pulse so powerful it lit up the night sky like artificial lightning. The energy dome over the city flickered and failed. 3 Velthari patrol ships caught in the pulse, spun out of control and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean. Aboard the flagship, Commander Thys stared at damage reports that made no sense to her ordered mind. How are they generating electromagnetic fields of this magnitude? Their technology shouldn't be capable of it. Her aide's crystalline form pulsed with confusion. "Commander, they're not using advanced technology. They're using basic infrastructure, power, plants, subway systems, even waste treatment facilities. Somehow they're turning civilian equipment into weapons. That's impossible. Civilian infrastructure isn't designed for military applications." Apparently, no one told the humans that. In Seoul, Dr. Taeyang's basement had become the unofficial headquarters for what people were already calling the Underground Railroad, AA, network of scientists, engineers, and hackers who shared information through the old cable systems the aliens couldn't block. "I've got something," announced Dr. Yoonji Lee over a crackling radio connection from Busan. "Their ship hulls are made from some kind of crystalline material. Looks tough, but I've been experimenting with industrial acids. Turns out, if you mix common water treatment chemicals in the right proportions, it eats right through their armor." "How common are we talking?" Taeyang asked. "Stuff you can find in any municipal water plant. I'm uploading the formula now." Within 6 hours, resistant cells in dozens of cities were manufacturing improvised chemical weapons from materials that had been sitting in storage tanks all along. The Velthari watched in growing alarm as their primitive subjects turned water purification systems into chemical weapons factories. The breaking point came when Corporal Minsik Park's unit in Daegu successfully hacked into a Velthari communication array. They hadn't used sophisticated cyber warfare tools. just modified gaming computers and wireless routers arranged in a configuration that no military strategist would have considered. "We're in," Minsick announced over the Resistance network. "And you're not going to believe what we're hearing." The intercepted alien communications revealed the truth that changed everything. The Velthari weren't confused or frustrated by human resistance, they were terrified. "They keep calling us impossible," Minsick reported. "Apparently every other species they've encountered becomes more compliant when threatened. We're the first ones who get more dangerous." Captain Hana Kim felt something cold and sharp settle in her chest as she processed this information. They've never dealt with anyone who fights harder when cornered. Around the world, the resistance was growing, stronger by the hour. Humans who had never worked together before were sharing knowledge and resources with a speed that amazed even themselves. The chaos that the aliens saw as a weakness was revealing itself as humanity's greatest strength. The Veltari had made a fundamental miscalculation. They had assumed that removing humanity's ability to fight each other would make them peaceful. Instead, it had simply given them a common enemy. By the end of the first day, Commander Thys was looking at casualty reports and damage assessments that painted a picture she couldn't accept. Her peaceful intervention was turning into a war zone, and somehow, the primitives were winning. "Commander," her aide said quietly, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal." Thys's form flared bright with anger. "Withdrawal? From a species that doesn't even have faster-than-light travel? Impossible. We simply need to adjust our methods." But deep down, she was beginning to understand that they might have awakened something they couldn't control, something that had spent 4 billion years learning how to survive anything the universe could throw at it. The breakthrough came from the most unlikely source, a 17-year-old gamer named Jinsu who lived in his grandmother's apartment in Busan. While military experts around the world struggled to understand alien technology, Jinsu was treating it like the ultimate video game puzzle. "It's all about pattern recognition," he explained to Dr. Yoonji Lee over their improvised radio network. "Their communication systems use the same logic as old-school encryption algorithms. I've been watching their signal patterns for 3 days, and they repeat every 47 minutes. Dr. Yoonji nearly dropped her coffee. "You cracked their communication codes using gaming equipment?" "Gaming equipment and about 15 energy drinks. Want to hear what they're really saying about us?" What Jinsu had discovered changed everything. The intercepted alien communications weren't tactical reports or strategic planning. They were something much more revealing: confused, frightened conversations between beings who had never encountered anything like humanity. "Translation is rough," Jinsu continued, "but they keep using words that translate to impossible and unprecedented. They're not angry at us. They're scared of us." In a hidden bunker beneath Seoul, Commander Haejin Yu listened to the recordings. With growing amazement, the alien voices, even through translation software, carried a tone of bewilderment that was almost comical. "They call us chaos species," she told her assembled staff. "According to their communications, every other intelligent race they've encountered becomes more cooperative when faced with superior force. We're the first ones who get more creative." Lieutenant Soo-young Nam pulled up tactical displays showing human resistance activities across the globe. "Sir, look at this pattern. Every time they increase pressure on one city, 3 others develop new countermeasures. It's like we're learning from each other faster than they can adapt." The alien confusion was understandable. The Veltari had evolved on a world called Serenitas, a planet so stable that its seasons changed with clockwork precision, where natural disasters were virtually unknown, and where cooperation was the key to survival. They had built their entire civilization on the principle that rational beings would always choose the path of least resistance. Earth had taught humanity the opposite lesson. Dr. Taeyang Moon had moved his operation from his basement to an abandoned subway tunnel, where the electromagnetic interference from the trains provided natural camouflage from alien sensors. His latest discovery was keeping him awake at night. "I've been analyzing their technology," he reported to the Global Resistance Network. "Their ships, their weapons, their shields, everything is designed for maximum efficiency and minimum conflict. They've never had to engineer for real combat. "What does that mean for us?" asked a voice from the London cell. "It means they build everything like it's going to be used in a peaceful environment. Their hull plating is incredibly advanced but thin, designed to deflect cosmic dust, not explosive charges. Their energy weapons are calibrated for stunning, not killing. They literally don't know how to build weapons of war." This revelation spread through the resistance faster than any official military communication could have traveled. Humanity wasn't just fighting technologically superior aliens, they were fighting aliens who had never learned to fight back. In Tokyo, engineer Kyung-Soo Park was putting this knowledge to practical use. He had figured out how to turn subway, construction equipment into siege weapons, using diamond-tipped tunnel boring machines to punch holes through alien ship hulls like they were made of paper. "The beautiful thing about human engineering," he explained to his team as they modified another construction vehicle, "is that we build everything expecting it to break. So we make it strong enough to survive abuse. They build everything expecting it to work perfectly forever. So when it doesn't, they have no backup plan." The psychological impact on the Velthari was becoming clear through the intercepted communications. They had spent centuries believing that their way of life represented the peak of civilized development. Meeting humanity was like discovering that everything they thought they knew about intelligence and progress was wrong. "Commander," came a transmission from one of the patrol ships. "The humans have weaponized their waste disposal systems. They're launching projectiles made from compressed garbage that our shields can't deflect because they don't register as weapons." Commander Thiss's response revealed her growing desperation. "How is that possible? Waste disposal isn't a military technology." For them, apparently everything is military technology. They've turned their food delivery systems into supply lines, their entertainment networks into communication arrays, and their transportation infrastructure into weapons platforms. It's as if their entire civilization is designed for war. But the most disturbing discovery came from behavioral analysis. Dr. Soyoung Choi had been studying the alien intervention from a psychological perspective, and what she found challenged everything the Velthari believed about intelligent life. "They genuinely thought they were helping us," she announced during a resistance meeting in an abandoned shopping mall. In their communications, they refer to Earth as a trauma world, and humans as a damaged species. They believe that any intelligent race that develops through conflict instead of cooperation must be suffering. Colonel Sunwoo Kang looked up from his tactical displays. "Suffering? We call it living." "Exactly. But they can't understand that. Their entire species evolved through cooperation on a stable world. They've never had to deal with scarcity, natural disasters, or existential threats. To them, our ability to thrive under pressure isn't strength, it's a psychological disorder that needs to be cured." The revelation hit the human resistance like a lightning bolt. The aliens weren't evil conquerors trying to destroy humanity. They were concerned parents trying to save children from what they perceived as an abusive environment. "That's why their weapons are non-lethal," realized Admiral Yuna Shin during a video conference from her mobile command center. "They're not trying to defeat us. They're trying to rescue us from ourselves. And that," added Colonel Sunwoo with a grim smile, "is why they're losing. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved." The final piece of the puzzle came from intercepted alien historical records. The Velthari had encountered over 300 intelligent species in their expansion across the galaxy. Every single one had eventually accepted relocation to safer worlds under Velthari protection. But those species had all evolved on relatively stable worlds, where cooperation and peaceful coexistence were survival strategies. They had never faced the kind of existential challenges that forged humanity's character. "We're not just the first species to refuse them," Dr. Yunji realized during a late-night transmission to resistance cells worldwide. "We're the first species they've met that was forged by adversity instead of peace." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just fighting for their freedom, they were proving that an entirely different path to intelligence and civilization was possible. Every human victory was shattering the Velthari's understanding of how intelligent life should develop. In her flagship above Earth, Commander Thiss stared at reports that made no sense to her ordered mind. The humans weren't becoming more compliant as the intervention continued. They were becoming more unified, more creative, and more dangerous. For the first time in her 3 centuries of life, she was beginning to understand what fear meant, and, somewhere in the depths of her crystalline consciousness, a terrifying thought was taking shape. What if the humans were right, and the Velthari were wrong about everything? The plan was insane, which was probably why it worked. Admiral Yuna Shin stood in the cargo bay of what used to be a civilian transport ship, now hastily converted into humanity's most desperate gamble. Around her, engineers were still welding armor plates and installing weapon systems that had no business being on a spacecraft designed to carry tourists to lunar hotels. "Ma'am, are you sure about this?" asked Captain Jamin Cho, checking his spacesuit seals for the 3rd time. "We're basically flying a city bus into a sword fight." Yuna smiled, the kind of expression that had become common among humans over the past weeks, equal parts determination and controlled madness. "Captain, we've been flying city buses into sword fights since this whole thing started. Why stop now?" The breakthrough had come from an unexpected source. Jinsu, the teenager who had cracked alien communications, had discovered something crucial in the intercepted transmissions. The Velthari flagship wasn't just a command vessel, it was their mobile home, containing the entire leadership of their intervention fleet. "They don't separate military from civilian command," he had explained to the resistance leadership. "It's all one big family structure. Take out the flagship, and they lose everything at once." The problem was that the flagship was protected by energy shields that could deflect anything humanity had ever built. The solution came from Dr. Taeyang's realization that the shields were designed to stop weapons, not random space debris. "We just need to not look like a weapon," he had said. "We need to look like space junk," so they had built a fleet of space junk. Old satellites, decommissioned station modules, even a converted garbage scow, all fitted with basic life support and skeleton crews. To alien sensors, they would register as harmless debris until it was too late. The assault began at dawn, Earth time. 47 improvised spacecraft launched from hidden facilities around the globe, their trajectories calculated to look like orbital decay patterns. From the Velthari flagship, they appeared to be exactly what they were supposed to be. Space. Trash falling toward Earth. Commander Thys watched the debris field on her screens with mild interest. "Primitive orbital maintenance," she commented to her aide. "They cannot even keep their own satellites in proper orbits." Her aide's crystalline form pulsed with agreement. "Should we clear the debris to prevent contamination of our vessels?" "Unnecessary. Our shields will deflect any impacts." That confidence lasted exactly 14 minutes. The first converted satellite struck the shield generator housing with the impact of a small meteor. The Velthari had designed their shields to deflect energy weapons and guided missiles, not chunks of metal traveling at orbital velocity. The generator housing cracked, and power fluctuations rippled through the entire shield grid. "What was that?" Thys demanded as alarms began sounding throughout the ship. "Debris impact, Commander, but the readings are unusual." The second impact came from a different angle, an old weather satellite that had been gutted and filled with homemade explosives. When it struck the weakened shield, the explosion created a cascade failure that brought down an entire section of the defensive grid. Through the gap came Captain Jamin's boarding craft, looking like nothing more threatening than a converted cargo pod. By the time the Velthari realized what was happening, human soldiers were already cutting through their hull. The fighting inside the alien ship was brief and brutal. The Velthari had never designed for boarding actions. Their corridors were wide and elegant, perfect for ceremonial processions but terrible for defense. Their security forces carried stun weapons designed to incapacitate unruly citizens, not armed soldiers in combat armor. Colonel Sun Wukang moved through the ship's pristine hallways like a force of nature, his assault team behind him. They had trained for this moment using intelligence gathered from intercepted communications, studying alien psychology as much as their technology. "Remember," he called to his team, "they're not evil, they're just wrong. Minimum necessary force, only." The command center was a crystalline chamber that looked more like a cathedral than a military installation. Commander Thys stood at its center. her form pulsing with rapid panicked light as human soldiers surrounded her. "This is impossible," she whispered. "Your ships should not have been able to penetrate our defenses." Sergeant Minju Seo lowered her weapon but kept it ready. "That's your problem right there. You keep thinking in terms of what should be possible instead of what is possible." Colonel Sunwoo stepped forward, removing his helmet so Thys could see his face. The gesture was calculated, showing trust while demonstrating humanity's greatest strength. "Commander Thys, I'm Colonel Kang of the Earth Defense Forces. Your surrender is accepted." "Surrender?" Thys's form flickered with confusion. "But we came to help you. We came to save you from your terrible world." "We don't need saving," Sunwoo replied quietly. "We never did." The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of the victor dictating terms to the defeated, the humans offered something unprecedented: a choice. "You can continue trying to save species that don't want saving," Admiral Yuna explained via hologram from the surface. "Or you can learn something new. Your way isn't the only way intelligent life can develop." Thys struggled to understand. "But your world is so harsh. Your species is so chaotic. How can you prefer suffering to peace?" Dr. Soyoung Choi joined the conversation from Earth. "We don't prefer suffering. We prefer freedom. The freedom to make our own mistakes, to grow in our own way, to become something you never imagined possible." "But all those wars, all that violence, made us who we are," interrupted Colonel Sunwoo. "Yes, we fight, but we also create music that would make you weep, art that captures emotions you don't have words for, and literature that explores ideas your peaceful worlds never needed to consider." The final moment came when young Jin-Soo, patched in from his grandmother's apartment, asked the question that broke through millennia of Velthari conditioning. "Commander, in all the worlds you've saved, has anyone ever created anything that surprised you? Has anyone ever solved a problem you couldn't solve? Has anyone ever shown you something genuinely new?" The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Thys's form dimmed to barely a whisper of light. "No," she admitted. "They all became peaceful, harmonious, and identical." "Then you haven't been saving them," Jinsu said gently. "You've been collecting them." The Velthari fleet departed 3 days later, but not before Commander Thys transmitted a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. "Galaxy-wide alert. Species designation human. Planet Earth. System Sol. Classification changed. From primitive protection candidate to apex survivor species. Do not engage. These beings have weaponized survival itself. They do not seek rescue from their harsh world. They have made it their strength. Approach with extreme caution. They represent a form of intelligence development previously thought impossible." 6 months later, the first human exploration vessels left Earth's solar system. Captain Dae-Ho-An stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable, watching the stars ahead through the viewport. "Captain," called Navigator Seoyeon Park, "we're receiving long-range transmissions from multiple star systems. They're invitations." "Invitations? To what?" "To visit. It seems word has spread about what happened here. There are species out there who want to meet the ones who said no to the Velthari." Dae-Ho smiled. Not the grim expression of a warrior, but the bright grin of an explorer about to discover something wonderful. "Set course for the nearest one. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you give impossible people the freedom to prove that impossible things are just things nobody's tried yet." Behind them, Earth continued its chaotic dance around the sun, storms raging across its surface, beautiful and terrible and utterly free. The children of the trauma world were going to the stars, and they were taking their hard-won wisdom with them. The galaxy would never be the same.